No, we're going to have the regulation.
There's already tons of regulation.
There's already tons.
Well, so
There'll be a ton more.
wasn't there somebody that came out and was telling SEC about Bernard Madoff
Yes.
for years, and they never did anything about it? So even if there is regulation, it doesn't mean they're going to act upon it. So the question is, maybe we should retire and perhaps regulate the central bank more so? So how do you feel?
I'll sign your petition.
Everyone should sign that.
It's beyond that. I mean, it gets down to morality. You have to teach a higher level of morality. The difference between right and wrong.
I agree with you.
And you cannot reward people on Wall Street or in any endeavor who misbehave, who play on the other side of the rules, and who encourage bad behavior. And that's what was happening on the Wall Street during my 17 years of experience. And anybody else who worked on Wall Street, I'm sure, knows the same thing. Not everybody, but what I was led to believe was that if you want to get to the top, you essentially have to turn yourself into a person that you would not like to be. Right, sure.
Do you think that we'll start to see, now that brokers are commercial banks, are we going to see branches of Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, or are they, knowing things improve, they're just going to throw away their commercial banking license and go back to being a broker?
I don't think they're going to unscramble the bank holding company eggs. I mean, I think that provides them safety. They can borrow from the Fed window without anybody thinking twice about it. The problem was when the Fed opened the window on March 16th after they let Bear Stearns go down to the investment banks. Nobody wanted to borrow from the investment banks from the window because they would get stigmatized as needing to. Now, if they're bank holding companies, then every bank holding company borrows from the Fed, and that's just something that is done in the course of business. I think that Morgan Stanley has made a fundamental decision, at least under John Mack, which obviously can be changed by a new CEO, that they're going to be huge into the broker business. And, presumably that means they're going to be taking less risk as principals. Goldman Sachs, it doesn't have any brokers. They're getting very few. I mean, I guess they have, high net worth things that they do. I mean, I suspect that Goldman Sachs is looking to get back as soon as possible the way it used to be. They want to pay back the TARP money. They want to be able to pay people whatever they want. They don't want the government looking over their shoulder anymore. They've raised capital independently again without the benefit of the government guarantee. Goldman Sachs, I think, is in a race to get back to what the status quo was before last fall.
Okay, one more question, and that's the end.
The young lady.
I'm curious, as an ex-Lehman employee, why do you think the Fed let Lehman go into bankruptcy?
It's a good question to end on. So I wrote about it in the book. This whole thing of debt order is important. Had Lehman reached an inflection point last March, March of 08, they would have been saved, and Bear Stearns would have fallen, gone. The problem was that at the end, in September, and I've written about this extensively and researched it extensively, there was nobody to come by Lehman. There was nobody there. Okay, so that's fact one. Unlike with J.P. Morgan and Bear Stearns, there was nobody there. J.P. Morgan was not going to buy Lehman. No, Bank of America was busy buying Merrill. Barclays had talked about buying Lehman that weekend, but then either by design or by negotiating tactic, the equivalent of the SEC in the UK, the FSA, the Financial Services Authority, said that Barclays could not buy Lehman. So then Barclays walked away. Now maybe that was the plan all along so they could buy what they wanted out of Lehman out of bankruptcy. The real question is, that I still do not have an answer to, is why Paulson and Bernanke and Geithner did not do for Lehman what they did for AIG 3 days later. So they provided $85 billion of rescue financing for AIG and nothing for Lehman. Now, why? I think the answer is because AIG was insuring Goldman Sachs' claims, insuring Morgan Stanley's claims, and they needed AIG to survive, to prop up the rest of the system. Lehman was a competitor, and when they rescued that, then they would have been rescuing another, competitor. Now, in fairness, they were kind of making it up as they went along, but they still have not answered the question satisfactorily in my mind, why they could have rescued Lehman for $45 billion, and they said no, and they rescued AIG for $180 billion in counting, and they said yes. Now, obviously, they then turned around and used the Lehman incident to get the TARP legislation. It didn't fit, it failed the first time. That was the worst moment of all, in my judgment. Not when Lehman failed. As horrible as that was in human terms and in creditor terms, that was terrible. But the worst moment in all of this was when the TARP 1 failed and the Congress didn't pass it, and the market fell 787 points. And I don't think they would have gotten the TARP legislation passed the second time if Lehman hadn't failed and they hadn't seen how bad, everything froze up afterwards. So I think they made it up as they went along, which is unfortunate. I think to some extent they were trying to do the best they could do, although that runs a little hollow in my mind when you look at AIG. And until Paulson fesses up, we won't really know.
That would make a great book, I think. So,